Okay, the basic obligations of public service, Part 2. Penalties for violating the basic obligations of public service can range from administrative sanctions like training or suspension to severe consequences like criminal charges and even prison time. The severity of the penalty depends on the nature, the severity of the violation. Here is a more detailed breakdown. Administrative penalties, corrective training. This should involve ethics training because violating the basic obligations of public service are ethical violations. You can file for that too. Corrective training. This could involve ethics training or retaining to address specific issues. Suspension, temporary removal from work. Demotion, lowering an employee's position within the organization. Removal, termination of employment. I think that should stand out the most. Civil penalties, fines, financial penalties can be substantial, potentially reaching hundreds of thousands of dollars. Restitution. Now remember, fines and restitution are different. Restitution requiring the individual to repay any losses caused by their actions. Criminal penalties, criminal charges depending on the severity of the offenses. Individuals may face criminal charges, potentially leading to fines, jail time, and a criminal record. Prison time in cases of serious offenses, bribery or fraud. In case of serious offenses like bribery or fraud, individuals can be sentenced to jail or prison. Loss of livelihood. Criminal convictions can significantly impact an individual's future employment prospects. Other consequences, damage to restitution. Ethics violations can severely damage an individual's profession and personal reputation, potentially leading to social ostracism. Ooh, I love the court of public opinion. Loss of public trust. Violations can erode public trust in the government and public service. Legal fees. Defending criminal charges or civil suits can be very expensive. Penalties costing hundreds of thousands of dollars or even more. Key considerations. Intent. The intent behind the violation may be considered when determining the severity of the penalty. Nature of violations. Different types of violations which have different penalties, with more serious violations carrying harsher consequences. Specific laws and regulations. Specific laws and regulations governing ethics and public service vary by jurisdiction. Basic obligations of public service, U.S. Department, that's DOI. Okay, this is other places you can look. See, they're telling you that violating the basic obligations of public service are ethical violations. Violating any, when you're a public service, violating the oath, violating the basic obligations of public service. People think it's the same thing. No, it's not. But they basically tell you the same thing, and the penalties are similar. Fines, removal from said office or position of public service, and incarceration. And I think it's important you know that. And then when it comes to the legal system, it's on a need-to-know basis, and they don't think you need to know. But contrary to that, I believe you do. Okay, what are the penalties for violating ethics principles? Range from penalties include censure, removal from office, permanent disqualification from holding any state position, restitution, decades in prison, and fines that can reach up to hundreds of thousands of dollars. Not all ethical violations are treated equally. Okay. What are the obligations of a public servant? You shall not use your public office for private gain. Okay? Simple as that. You shall act impartially and not give preferential treatment to any private organization or individual. You shall protect and conserve federal property and shall not use it other than authorized activity. So says the public trust doctrine. Okay, so if you read the public trust doctrine, you'll find there's a bunch of laws there that are being broken. It's just that ever since these laws were written, nobody's ever abided by them, and nobody's ever talked about them. So you're just used to what's going on in your life, and it's called living under the color of law. Okay, look up under the color of law. What you think is legal isn't actually legal. You just think it's legal because the legal system did it, but they actually violated the laws in establishing a said law that's contrary, not conducive to the United States Constitution.
Incoming.
Inconducive. I already told you, any law repugnant to the United States Constitution is null and void. It cannot be established. To even think so is violating the oath of public service. You cannot usurp the Constitution. It's illegal. I did a video usurping the Constitution. So maybe you might want to watch that. What an example for violating ethics? Ethics violations such as discrimination, safety violations, poor working conditions, and releasing proprietary information as other examples such as bribery, forgery, and theft, while certainly ethical and proper cross over into criminal activity and are often dealt with outside the company. Yes, even in the workplace, there are ethics. Okay, so just Google where to file for ethics violations, and it'll give you a whole list of different things, different places you can file for ethics violations, whether it be the workplace, the government, any public servant. You can hold any public servant for ethics violations. Just violating the oath is an ethics violation. U.S. Basic obligations of public service, U.S. Department of Interior. See, all these people know about this, but they're not going to do nothing unless you talk to them, which is clearly ridiculous. If the Department of Government Efficiency really was doing their job, they would be telling everybody, hey, do your job. Do your job. Okay. Summary of government ethic rules and department officials, Department of Justice. OGE, we discussed that, government of ethics and accountability. So you want accountability, you literally have to file a complaint. They know it's happening, but nobody's going to do nothing unless you say, hey, I know this too. Just like your constitutional rights. If you don't know them, it's never going to happen. Look up quick and speedy trial. That never happens. If they do not issue a quick and speedy trial within the set time limitations, yes, there are a statute of limitations on a quick and speedy trial, which comes to 90 days, and if you aren't charged within the appropriate amount of time, that 90 days, the case is null and void and dismissed. You could literally be in prison, and on that simplistic law, you can have your case overturned because you were denied due process. You did not receive informed consent. You did not give informed consent. In order to give informed consent, you need reasonable information to make an informed decision to give that informed consent. That you give informed consent to bypass your quick and speedy trial. And remember, the rules of professional conduct guarantee expediting litigation. That will be diligent. That would show competence. Was that communicated to you? Okay, that I'm just citing some laws from the rule of professional conduct, and if you look it up, you'll find it's just as easy to say as I do. Okay, well, there you go. See, this is where I get this stuff. I read about I love books. I read about not everybody, but the basic obligations of public service. Okay, let's go here real quick. I'll tell you who. This is an old law. Okay, the Foundation of Ethical Behavior, Executive Order 12674. Thomas Jefferson enunciated the basic principles of public service. When a man assumes a public trust, he can consider himself as public property. The sentiment has been expressed by numerous others over time, becoming familiar principles. Public service is a public trust. Ensure confidence in the integrity of the federal government. Executive Order 12674, as amended from the framework for the ethical behavior required and expected of all federal employees as a condition of public service. You are expected to adhere to these fundamental principles of ethical behavior. Public service is a public trust requiring to place loyalty to the Constitution and ethical principle about private gain. You shall not hold financial interest that conflict with your conscious performance of duty. You shall not engage in financial transactions using non-public government information or allow improper use of such information to further any private interest. You shall not accept proof of such reasonable expectations as provided by the regulations to solicit or accept any gift or other item of monetary value from any person, entity seeking official action from doing business with or conducting activities regulated by your agency or whose interest may be substantially affected by the performance or non-performance of your duties. You shall not make any unauthorized commitments or promise of any kind purported to bind the government. You shall put forth honest effort in the performance of your duties. You shall not engage in outside employment or activities, including seeking or negotiating for appointment that conflict with your official government duties and responsibilities. You shall disclose waste, fraud, abuse, corruption to appropriate authorities. You shall satisfy in good faith your obligations as a citizen, including your financial obligations, especially those of federal, state, and local taxes that are imposed by law. You shall adhere to all the laws and regulations that provide equal opportunities for all Americans, regardless of race, religion, color, sex, including pregnancy, parental status, national origin, age, disability, family medical history, or genetic information, political affiliation, and military service. You shall not use your public office for private gain. You shall act impartially and not give preferential treatment to any private organization or individual. You shall protect and conserve federal property and shall not use it for other than authorized activity, so says the Public Trust Doctrine. You shall endeavor to avoid any actions creating the appearance that you are violating the law. You shall endeavor, let me reiterate that, you shall endeavor to avoid any actions creating the appearance that you are violating the law. The standards of ethical conduct for employees of Executive Branch 5 CFR Part 2635, the DOI Supplemental Ethics Regulations. Okay. Was this helpful? Yes. Okay, people. So, if you think DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, if they're actually being efficient, hey guys, how about everybody do this? The basic obligation, public service, and not doing that. That requires fines, removal from public service, and incarceration. Talk to the U.S. Department of Interior, okay? And you can also, it's on the DOJ website, the FBI website, Okay, there's Institution for Local Government, Department of Justice. Yeah. So, have fun. I have fun telling you about this. In my younger days, I used to, read to younger people. Actually, I used to go to the courts and help people, criminal court, civil court, whatever court I could get to, mostly criminal court. And you would not believe how pissed the public defenders, the state's attorneys, and judges would get mad at me for bringing their legal obligations, their job descriptions to court and explaining them to the defendants. Hey, this is due process. This is how you get a fair trial. This is effective assistance of counsel. These are the legal obligations of all lawyers and judges. Violating the rules or the ethics is misconduct. It's mandatory to report misconduct in both the rules of professional conduct and code of judicial conduct. A failure to report is misconduct. I mean, you could literally write somebody up for failing to the state's attorney for failing to report your lawyer for misconduct, and failure to report themselves for misconduct for failure to report misconduct. Oh man, I'm gonna go through the rules of professional conduct with you, and it can be quite entertaining. It can. You just have to read. And all these laws I talked to you about, they're all interconnected in one form or another. Okay, I'm just giving you your public servants' legal obligations. I like the crazy judge that said the cops don't have to protect you. That's kind of crazy, don't you think? Or this qualified immunity thing. I told you where that started in the 50s, Pearson versus Ray, to stop some preachers from sitting in a segregated section at the bus depot. The cops thought they were breaking the law. Hey, look, the sign says colored people only. And the white preacher said, hey, but that's for them, or I don't know, but it wasn't a law, but the cops thought it was a law because of what the sign said. And the court said, well, hey, they thought it was a law. They didn't know it was a law. But, they had good intentions. Seriously? Oh, okay. Either way, this is part 2. Penalties for violating the basic obligations of public service. Okay? Part 2 of basic obligations of public service. Thank you for listening. I wish you nothing but a long life and good health. May your Creator always be with you. Many blessings, my friends, many blessings.